Welcome to the Travels with Tulsans, sponsored by the Friends of the Tulsa City County Libraries. If you would like to become a member of the Friends, we have some information in the back. You can pick up a form, and we love to have you join us to support our 5-star Tulsa City County Library system. We are happy that the Rudisa Library hosted us again this year. We really like this facility. I am Giselle McDaniel, and I'm welcoming you. Today, we're traveling to Egypt. Andy and his mom will give us a terrific report. Next week, our own Tara back there, she is taking us to Mississippi on some writers' trails, writers and blues and civil rights trails. So we hope that you will join us again. Okay, a little bit about Andy. Andy and I were colleagues at Tulsa Community College, the Northeast campus. And we're also friends on Facebook. And last year, he went on a trip to Egypt during the spring break of 2025. And when I saw all those pictures, I said, oh, this would make a terrific program. So when he returned from his trip, I asked him if he would, and he said, sure, I would love to. So now, a year later, he's giving us a report. Okay, oops, I touched something. I don't know. My hand just kind of went down on a keyboard. Okay, I'll stay over here. Okay, here's a little bit about Andy. Let's see. Andy is an OU graduate. He received his BA and MLIS degrees. He and his partners are parents of 2 amazing dogs. Andy is an avid rock, mineral, crystal collector, and even dabbles in some jewelry making. He's an active board member in several organizations and currently serves as a founding board member of the Friends of the Schusterman Library at OU. He is also the past president and board member of the Oklahoma chapter of Beta Phi Mu, the Library Honor Society, as well as past president and board member of the Oklahoma Association of College and Research Libraries, through which he won the 2024 Service Excellence Award. And he's a board member and Collection Development Committee chair for the Career Lit Collective Libraries in Oklahoma. While working with Andy at TCC, he would often talk about his mom, her many achievements and travels. And so I'm happy that I now finally have a chance to meet Phyllis. Phyllis Danley was born and raised in Ada, Oklahoma, which is about 120 miles south of Tulsa. Always have to find out where all those little towns are since I'm not a native Oklahoman. Her career includes piano teaching, operating a typing service, serving as CEO of the East Central University Credit Union, and subsequently as the executive director of the East Central University Foundation. After her retirement from ECU, she moved to Tulsa to be closer to her 2 sons, Andy and Evan is here too, and the 3 grandchildren. As a successful grant writer, Phyllis raised $42 million for the Tulsa Day Center for the Homeless. She stays busy in her retirement, serving as accompanist at the Forest Park Christian Church. She spends a lot of time traveling and visiting Europe, and she has already a trip planned to Portugal in March. So let's welcome Andy and his mom.
where I'm supposed to be. Well, thank you very much. That was a sweet introduction. I didn't remember I did all that stuff. Anyway, okay. Is that better? I'm trying to keep my picture in the same. Okay, is that better? Everyone can hear me? Okay, great. Of course, I wanted to say thank you and thank you for inviting us to be here today. And I know you hear from a lot of people with exciting trips, and we had an exciting trip. It was just amazing. Andy, as long as I can remember, since he was little, like 4 or 5 years old, he wanted to go to Egypt. He just wanted to go to Egypt. That was it. I would talk about my trips in Europe, and he would say, if I ever go overseas, I want to go to Egypt. So on his 49th birthday, I gave him a birthday card, and I normally put money or a check in the card. For his 49th birthday, I put a copy of the pyramids. I printed out a picture of the pyramids and put in there. And he said, what is this? And his brother Evan said, I think you're going to Egypt. So I said, it'll take us a year to get it planned and all that. So for your 50th birthday, yes, we're going to go to Egypt. So we had a year of it. It really took a good 6 to 9 months to plan everything, to decide exactly what we wanted to do, to find the right tour company, and to find out everything that we could about Egypt before we went. It was a dream trip. I'm sure everybody has had lots of trips, and some of them are just mediocre. Some of them are really good. But this was a once in a lifetime thing, and it was a dream. Every day we would say, are we really in Egypt? Are we really there? And we were. So I want to just give you a few facts before we get started with the slideshow, and we'll kind of explain a little bit of things as we go along. A few interesting things about Egypt. Obviously, the shopping is wonderful. So the traffic is horrendous, and we had heard about that before. We had watched lots of YouTube videos about it. It still did not prepare us for being actually in the traffic. A marked 6-lane highway, like 3 lanes going each direction, can hold at least 12 lanes of traffic, we found out, of vehicles. And in fact, our tour guide told us that from the airport to our hotel, he said the marks on the white and yellow marks on the highways are for decoration only. And there are no stop signs, there are no signal lights, and it's just every person for themselves. They take the side mirrors off of their vehicles so that they can get close. And they get close. And I'll share another story later on. But very little honking. Really, they don't honk very much. They usually honk if they need to move into a different lane. But you'll be going 65, 70 miles an hour down the highway, and you'll notice everybody is swerving like this, and it'll be a donkey with a little boy riding the donkey right in the middle of the 6 lanes of traffic, and it'll have a load of clover on the back of the donkey, taking it to the camels. So, and motorcycles go both directions. It doesn't matter because they just can go wherever they want. So the traffic, by the second day, we just weren't looking. As long as we got there, we were fine. Another thing in Egypt, and we were prepared for this too, was we had to tip everyone. And the public bathrooms had no toilet paper except a lady standing with 4 little squares outside the bathroom in this hand and this other hand out for a tip. So we learned pretty quickly we had to break our money down so that we weren't giving them huge tips, because then you had to tip on the way out. There was a place to wash your hands, but no paper goods of any kind. So I started carrying those little packets of Kleenex with me all the time, and I was not popular because they didn't like us to do that. But I would tip one way or the other, either going in or coming out, because these ladies, this is the way they make their living. Egypt is a Muslim country, and they were in their season of Ramadan while we were there. I have some Muslim friends, so I understand Ramadan pretty well. The only things that we could tell that was Ramadan was that the tour guides would not eat or drink until after dusk. And there was not a belly dancer on the dinner cruise that we went on. So those were the only two ways that we could really tell that it was Ramadan. And because it's a Muslim nation, there's no pork. And it really took us about the third day, I think, before that really hit us. We knew that, but the food was so wonderful. They used lots of chicken. And at one restaurant, I asked, the food item was just meat. And I said, what is the meat? And he said, probably chicken or pigeon. And I said, I'll just get the vegetables then. Anyway, but lots of chicken and lots of beef products, vegetables, fruits, hummus, pita bread, all it was wonderful. Desserts with every meal, even breakfast, they had desserts with every meal. And every meal was accompanied by at least 3 carbs. You know, we're real good here to have a meat and a carb and a vegetable, something like that. 3 out of the 4, potatoes, rice, noodles, and bread, 3 out of those were served with every meal, regardless of what else you got. So we were carved up by the time we got home. Okay, are we ready for the first slide? Yes. Where's the deal?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. We arrived in Cairo at the airport, and we walked out, and there were a lot of people with signs, you know, names on them, but there wasn't one for us. And I had told Andy the whole time, I said, you know, I found this tour company out of Cairo, and we did everything by text and by email. And there comes a point you just have to trust that you've chosen the right one. So we walked out, and there was no one there with our name. And so I called the tour company, and she answered. She said, he's there. And just within a few seconds, this young man popped up right there. And he said, I was watching for your luggage. You have red luggage. And I said, yes, I have red luggage. So anyway, we got to our hotel then, and our hotel was really off the beaten path. It was owned by the tour company. And when we got to the room and we opened our curtains, the pyramids were right across the highway. So people that stay in the Hilton and Sheraton and places like that don't get to see that every morning and every evening. So that was something special. Our tour guide had kept telling us that our room would have a view of the pyramids. And I just went, okay, yeah, right, all right. But it was true. It was true. Absolutely wonderful. So I'll let Andy talk for a minute.
Okay. Can everyone hear me okay? Yes. All right. Sorry, my voice travels about 1.5 feet. So just want to make sure. No, something that I wanted to add, I really enjoyed staying in a hotel that was off the beaten path. Mom was able to find a tour company in Cairo when we did all of our planning. So it wasn't a US-based tour company. And so they really had the ins on where to stay, what to do, how to get there. And the 6th floor of our hotel was an open air restaurant that you see in the far right picture here. And that was our view from the restaurant. So every morning at breakfast, every evening at dinner, that was our view. And quite a view to get started with. That was also the view from our hotel room window. If you open the window, there were the pyramids right there. One of my favorite things about also staying in that hotel was this at night. This was the picture at night. What I also did not realize is that Cairo is a city of 22 million people. The majority of Egypt lives in Cairo. And the city goes on and on and on. And you can drive for 1.5 hours, 2 hours in any direction, and you're still in Cairo. It's such a massive city. One thing that cracked me up, and I'll get into our pyramid tour next, but if you stood at the pyramids, the Great Pyramids, 4,500 years old, and you turned around to face Cairo, there was a KFC and a Pizza Hut. And I'll never forget standing at the base of the pyramids and going, really? So, you know, I do have to, before we move on from our lodging, one thing I do have to say, and I hope you find the humor in this because it took me a few days to find the humor in this. Most toilets in Cairo are square. And I hope to never see these again because I am a large guy and we did not agree with square toilets, is all I can say. But it was the most bizarre thing. We checked into the hotel, opened the bathroom door, and both kind of went,
I said, you go first.
"Yeah, you go first." Right. So anyway, this was bizarre. Another thing, most of the showers in any places we stayed had no door or no. You would basically have a piece of glass, and then everything was just open air. And so that was really bizarre. That took a little while to get used to. But one of the most we had to laugh about it so much was money conversion. We were constantly checking it up until the time that we left to go to Cairo, to go to Egypt, and $1 equals 50 Egyptian pounds. And so what we would do is 300 at a time.
This was 300.
Yeah, we would exchange at the money exchange about $300 at a time into Egyptian pounds. That's what $300 looks like in Egyptian pounds. And I wore a sling bag on the trip to keep, my passport and everything there. Anytime I opened it, my money would go like this. I looked like a drug dealer. I had so much cash on me all the time. It was also difficult whenever we would go out to eat and pay the bill because this was a simple dinner with dessert, and you can see that the bill was for over 2,300 pounds. And it finally got to a point that we had to install an app on our phones to do the conversion because you can't do it in your head quick enough. So that's something we learned on the first or second day. First full day there was what I had wanted to do for 45 years. So we were able to go to the Great Pyramids. They drive you directly up. The roads go straight up to the pyramids. You can go inside each one of the pyramids. I was not able to go into the Great Pyramid because of basically the amount of people. But the smaller of the three pyramids, which is the Pyramid of Menkaure, I was able to go into. If you're very claustrophobic, I do not recommend it. The tunnel that you have to go into to get to the main open area inside each of the pyramids is about this tall and about this wide. So you have to double over completely and do that for almost 200 feet before it opens up into the main areas. It was not comfortable, but it was well worth it once we got inside. Mom and I were also able to ride camels around the pyramid. And this was my first experience at not being able to convert my money in my head. As Mom said, you tip everyone, and you tip the person. You should have seen me getting on the camel. That in itself, I wish I had a picture of, because I'm not built to get up on an animal that high. But when you get off the camel, you tip your camel handler because he's led you around the pyramids. All I can say is I made our camel handler a very wealthy individual because I couldn't do the conversion in my head, and I gave way too much money. I'm sure he was very, very happy. So this is the Pyramid of Menkaure, which is the one that Mom and I were able to go into. And when we got into the main room, which you'll see here on the right, we had to walk like an Egyptian. So we had to do, the obligatory photo. But this is the smallest of the three. The reason that you see the gap in this particular pyramid is that later pharaohs actually wanted to dismantle some of the pyramids. And they started with the smallest one. And this was over 10 years of trying to dismantle. And they finally gave up. The Great Pyramid, the largest one, is 2.3 million blocks, each weighing several tons. And so it was amazing to see that. But that's why you see this. And now I'll hand it back over to Mom, and she's going to talk about the Sphinx.
Was this the same day or the next day?
Same day.
Same day. We went to the Sphinx, and it is huge. And if you've studied anything about Egypt, you'll know that when they found it originally, only this part was showing. And so the rest of it has been excavated out. And it is literally huge. We were standing right here, and our tour guide was taking pictures of us. And so he said, get closer. And so Andy got closer, and he said, put your arm around her. So he put his arm around me, and he said, now look, and he was snapping the whole time with my phone. And then he said, now look lovingly into each other's eyes. And Andy said, this is my mother. And he went, no, we thought you were married. He said, everyone at the tour company thinks you're married. And I said, no, we're not married. So anyway, but he came over to me and he went, your skin. And I said, well, I stay out of the sun except for today. I'm seeing this thing. So I am this today. So, okay. And then you want to talk about Ramses and the step pyramid. Yeah.
So that was our tour of the pyramids and the Sphinx. I do have to say before the next slide that Mom talked about as long as she can remember, that I wanted to go to Egypt. We always had National Geographic growing up. Mom always made sure that we had a subscription, and she would also order the hardback books that you could order. And this would have been around 1980. And I was completely addicted to the one on King Tut. And so that's what started my fascination. So to be able to walk up to the Great Pyramid of Egypt and lay my hand on it was 45 years in the making. And it was just an amazing experience. After we left the Sphinx and the pyramids, we went to the stepped pyramid of Djoser, which was at Saqqara, which is kind of an extended area outside of Cairo. And it's kind of like Tulsa, as Broken Arrow is to Tulsa. And so Saqqara was one of the first stops. This stepped pyramid was an earlier version, and this pyramid actually predates the Great Pyramids of Giza, so it's actually much older. There is a way in through the back. We were not able to get into it that day. It's not accessible all the time, but this was amazing to see. We also went to another area called Memphis, which is another outlier of Cairo. And here you see the statue of Ramses II. This statue weighs 80 tons and was carved out of a solid piece of red granite. And it weighs so much they couldn't move it. So who knows how they did it?
They just built around it.
So they built the visitor center around the statue. And so that's what you're seeing. It has a second floor balcony, so you can walk all the way around to look at this. But it's probably about 70 feet long, and again, 80 tons. So
we don't know.
I don't know. Yeah,
we kind of doubt it.
Right.
They might have built it and then tried to stand it up. I doubt.
And then after we left here, we went to our first mosque, and I wanted to let Mom talk about that.
This was at the Citadel of Salah el-Din. It was at a real high point in Cairo. Absolutely gorgeous. The tile work was beautiful. This small monument outside used to be a water accessible. They had water running in there, and people would bring their buckets and pots and get water there. At the inside of the Citadel is actually the Muhammad Ali Presser Mosque. And so we kind of knew where Muhammad Ali got his name when he became a Muslim. So that was interesting. While we were in this, inside this, which was just gorgeous, our tour guide, who was a Muslim, decided he would give us a little lesson in Islam. And the first thing he said was, 98% of Muslims are not violent. and they don't represent us well. And I told him we knew that. I said, I have good friends who are Muslim, and we do understand that. But he proceeded to tell us the 5 tenets of Islam. And I said, we're not converting. And he said, I know you're not, I mean, we laughed about it. But it was wonderful to hear him talk. And of course, to see the people in Egypt, they're beautiful people. They're gentle and they're very kind. And that's all we saw. And I know on the news, we hear a lot about Iran and the Muslims that are there in other parts of the country, but the majority are not violent at all. You want to go ahead to the next one? This is from the rooftop of the Citadel. If you'll notice, everything is gray or brown. There are no colors anywhere except the green on the date palm trees. And these palm trees grow everywhere. They have planted them everywhere. There are no gardens. There's no grass anywhere. You're at the beginning of the Sahara Desert. So they don't even try. They don't even try to do anything. But the date palms are everywhere. Every new building that they build is a rectangle with rectangular windows. They're all the same. They leave the top floor. If they're building a 4-story apartment house, they have to get permission to build the 4 stories. Then they leave all of the rebar sticking up in the roof where it looks like it's unfinished, because they'll rent out the bottom part. And once they've got enough money, then they'll finish it out. They'll go ahead and don't have to go back to the council and ask for permission because they've left it unfinished to begin with. So they have that part figured out. The roads, they have some wonderful roads in and out of Cairo. But you know how when we have our new turnpike or a highway done and everything's piled up on the side, the old concrete, dirt, everything. And here it's all smoothed out, grass is planted, or there's something put on the shoulder. And in Cairo, they build these beautiful highways and everything just stays piled. So it looks like a bombing zone. It looks like a bomb has just kind of come through. And so it's a little bit different. We finally decided after we've been there several days that they build beautiful things. They have the money to build beautiful things, but they don't really take care of anything. They don't come back and clean it, because when we took our train ride, it had not been cleaned since the day it started, we don't think. But anyway, but the lack of colors was amazing. Every once in a while, there would be a dark red something or a yellow, but overall, everything is gray and brown, right? Okay. Okay. I'm going to go back to you then, because there's several things on this next one.
Okay. Yeah.
You need to go.
Yes, sorry, I keep forgetting about that. So on the next day, we started the day out at the Old Cairo Museum, which is incredibly huge museum, that holds thousands and thousands and thousands of mummies and sarcophagi and you name it, it's there. One thing I really missed was this is where, when we were there, this is where King Tutankhamun's golden funerary mask was housed, and you were under no circumstances allowed to take photos of that mask. So, but we did get to see all of his jewelry, his weapons, his golden mask. We got to walk right up to it. It was amazing. I just don't have a picture of it because you're not allowed to. So from the Old Cairo Museum, we left that afternoon, and Mom had set up for us to take a felucca ride, which a felucca is just kind of a small sailboat. And we got to take our first sailboat ride down the Nile River, which was pretty amazing. I got to dip my hand in the water, and we stayed on there, I don't know, an hour or two.
About three.
About 3 hours, just cruising around in the Nile. So that was pretty amazing. We won't go too much into this, but riding an overnight train from Cairo to Luxor, which is a 9-hour train ride,
it was a mistake.
It was the one bad thing that happened to us during the trip. As Mom said, it probably hadn't been cleaned in decades, and it was horrible. I got the closest thing to food poisoning that I think I could get while we were on this overnight train ride. And I won't go into details, but needless to say, when we got to Luxor and Aswan, we called our tour company and we said, buy us airfare back to Cairo because we're never getting back on another train as long as we live. So that's all I'll say about the overnight train. Next, we stopped at Valley of the Kings. This is in Luxor, and it's right outside of Luxor. This is where they moved the majority of pharaohs to bury them after they died. It's 9 hours south of Cairo, but this is where I think there were 50 tombs.
64.
Okay,
60.
see, mom's better with numbers.
Well, I remember that. 64.
64 tombs that are just out in the hills. And they've excavated all of them to where you can tour them. You have to pay per tomb that you visit. So we picked for, of course, King Tut being one of them, which is what I wanted to go to next. This was just some of the things you would see as you enter the tomb with the hieroglyphics. This paint is 4,500 years old, and it's still that vivid, which I thought was amazing. This was the thing I had waited for. This is the tomb of King Tut. And so this was one of the 4 in the Valley of the Kings that we visited. Surrounded in hieroglyphs, but there in the middle picture, that's King Tut. They do have him preserved in a glass case there. And they've moved all the things that were found in the tomb back to the museums in Cairo. From Luxor, we left Luxor and we went 3 hours south of Luxor to Aswan. Aswan has the Philae Temple as well as the unfinished obelisk. The story behind that obelisk, which was going to be moved to Cairo, so think about moving that 4,500 years ago, 9 hours to the north. It just blows me away what they were able to do. They got decades into building this obelisk and it cracked right down the middle. And so it was abandoned, but that's one of the main stops. It's one of the largest obelisks that's ever been found in Egypt, and we got to tour that. We also got to tour the Philae Temple, which is just amazing, filled with columns and hieroglyphs. And yeah, it was just an amazing event. Next, and then I'll turn it back over to Mom. The Grand Egyptian Museum is now the largest museum in the world, and it houses a little over 126,000 different artifacts from Egypt. This is the new home of King Tut's golden mask, which you can now take pictures of. So I don't know what the difference is, but I wish I'd been able to do that. When you walk in, you can see how amazing the architecture is on this building. You have the statue of Ramses II that greets you as you walk in the door. And it was just amazing. We were there, only half of the museum was open while we were there because they hadn't done a grand opening yet. We spent just under 4 hours there and didn't even touch the surface at all. And the next few slides are just some of the things that we were able to see. They have these huge grand staircases that are just filled with artifacts and items from Cairo, and everywhere you turn, it just goes on and on and on for hours. And now I'll turn it back over to Mom to talk about our dinner cruise.
We did have a dinner cruise on the Nile, and we got there a little bit early, and there were, I don't know, probably 200 people, do you think? And the music was wonderful, and we all danced and waited for our food. It was absolutely just one of the neatest things that we did. It was very cool that night. I will mention, I mentioned to some of you here, the weather, the first 2 days, it was 95 degrees. And so we went everywhere early. They would pick us up at 6:30 or 7 in the morning, and we would be done by about 2 o'clock in the afternoon. The rest of the week, the other 6 days, it was in the 60s the whole time. And so very comfortable, really cool in the mornings and in the evenings too. But we did have a couple of pictures of the ship that we were on. I can't remember, but it was a buffet. And our tour guide had talked to the man who was in charge, and we were getting ready to get up and go walk through the buffet. And he said, no, he's going to prepare your food for you. He said, he's a friend of mine, and he's going to prepare your plate for you. So everybody was kind of looking at us, and we were sitting at the very front table closest to the food. But he went and he got some of everything that they offered. It was unbelievable, the amount of food that we had, and the drink too. Andy is a Coke Zero fiend, and believe it or not, they had Coke Zero everywhere we went. I fell in love with hibiscus tea, which was offered everywhere. Every store you go in, every monument that you attend, every gift shop that you're in, they offer you hibiscus tea with some different flavorings in it. Anyway, I fell in love with that. Do you have the library next, or this is Alexandria? Yeah.
So our last day that we were there, we took about a 3-hour car ride to go to Alexandria. I'm a librarian. I had to go where the world's oldest library is. And so we took a day trip. Alexandria sits right on the Mediterranean, and it's famous for 2 things. It's famous for the catacombs, 3 things, excuse me. The catacombs, the Pillar of Pompeii, and the library, of course. These were the catacombs. You go very, very far underground in a giant spiral staircase that goes several stories underground, and then it opens into these catacombs where they would store the bodies in ancient times. And toured that. It took quite a while. A lot of it's the same, a lot of just storage space for bodies, which is what a catacomb is.
It was carved out of solid stone. That is what's amazing. And it was 40, I think the shortest level was 40 feet below the surface.
Right.
And then it went down even farther than that.
Right. After that, of course, we went to the Bibliotheca Alexandria, which is the new Alexandria Library. They have 2.1 million items in their collection. And, we have 55,000 books between 4 libraries at TCC. So to go to a place that had 2.1 million, I was in awe. It's multi-story. It's built at an angle, so you can see how it just goes on and on and on. After we left the library, which was also filled with artifacts, it was everywhere you went was filled with artifacts, so it was amazing. I do have to let Mom talk about the next slide because of what happened.
Yes. Okay. This is in Alexandria still, and this is a remaining pillar from, I think there were probably 10 or 12 pillars. This is one remaining. And so to walk up it, it's about a 45-degree slant to walk up it. It's just dirt and rocks. There's no handicapped accessibility anywhere in Egypt, not to get into the pyramids or into the Valley of the Kings. Well, Andy went on ahead, and I took 2 steps and fell backwards. And if you've never fallen backwards, that is a terrible feeling. But I just had not adjusted to the amount of the ascent. And so I kind of slid and landed on a big rock. And everybody came and, and I was fine. I was really, really sore. But so we kind of cut short the rest of going to Alexandria. We had a few other things we wanted to see, but I felt like we needed to go back to the hotel in Cairo. And it was about a 2-hour drive. And the tour company was calling me every 15 minutes. If you want to go to the hospital, we'll take you to the hospital. I told Andy, I'm not going to the hospital. I'm not going. I have money, but I'm not going. So anyway, we got back in Cairo, and I had told our tour guide I need to stop at an ATM because the next day was our day at the bazaars and the markets. That was going to be our last day. And I said, I need to stop at an ATM. So we were in all this wild traffic, like I told you about, right in the middle, and going about 65 miles an hour. And our driver just went right past the ATM. And so the tour guide said, no, you got to go up here and turn around and come back. And our driver said no. And he just stopped in the middle of the traffic, and people were going around. Nobody honked. Everybody it was like parting the waves, and they just went around us. He put the car in reverse and looked in his mirror. He never looked behind him, looked in his mirror, and drove back 2 miles to the ATM backwards. I'm not even doing a good job explaining it because I was just going, what are we?
We had a death grip on anything you could.
Yeah, we were just going, anyway. So he pulls into the ATM and squeals the tires on the car. And he turns around and he looks at us and he said, I'm Vin Diesel. And I said, you're my hero. You're my hero, because I said, I have never lived through anything like that. It was absolutely amazing. But anyway, so we got to the ATM, and the next day, if you want to show the bazaar
Yes.
and the market right quick, that was our last day.
This was our last day
Yeah.
in Cairo. Khan el Khalili is the main market, which is located central Cairo. It's right in the middle of the city. This market has been open for 600 years, and it's amazing. The shopping was endless. There was really nothing you couldn't find in this market. The thing that I really wanted to do while we were in this market was I had read that I am a coffee snob. I love my coffee. I love my French press. I grind my beans. It's important to me. And I had found out that Al Fishway Cafe was in the very center of the market, and it's been open since 1773. And I had always wanted to try an authentic Turkish coffee and had never had that before. So when we got there, I got to have my authentic Turkish coffee, and Mom got to have her first henna tattoo. And so that's something that we did on that last day of shopping.
I'll talk about this.
Okay, well,
Okay.
and I'll
Yeah.
talk about the people in the middle.
Oh, okay,
Yeah.
okay. On the left then is the man on the left was one of our drivers. The second from the left is the young man who met us at the airport, took us back to the airport. Before we even got home from Egypt, he had sent us Facebook friend request. And we have talked about 2 or 3 times a month. Ever since then, he left a voice message for me a couple of weeks ago saying he's opened his own tour company. And when we come back, not if, when we come back, here's his number and we need to call him. But he stayed in touch. And then the guy in the white shirt is the one that did the backwards driving to the ATM. That's Vin Diesel. That's Vin Diesel. The family in the middle, I'll let Andy tell. Then the far right is Andy in that tea and coffee shop. He spent more money there than I spent buying clothes and jewelry and everything else. We bought alabaster vases. We bought onyx things. I bought lots of jewelry and some clothes. But he went in the coffee shop, and the guy likes him. You can tell he liked you because you spent so much money in him. So I'll let Andy speak quickly about the family in the middle. And then do we have time for a few questions? Do we? Okay. I didn't know how much time.
Just wanted to talk about the family in the middle. When we took the car ride between Luxor and Aswan earlier in the week, Mom had mentioned that at Ramadan, everybody fasts until dusk, and then they stop to eat. We happened to be driving off the highway in the middle of nowhere, Egypt, between Luxor and Aswan, right at the time that the sun went down. And the whole country stops the moment the sun goes down, no matter where you're at, and you stop and eat. Well, we happened to be in this unnamed, blink you miss it, town somewhere between Luxor and Aswan, and our drivers pulled off the side of the road and said, we'll go back in an hour because it's time to eat, and just got out of the car. And Mom and I are sitting there. We don't know where we're at. We're in the middle of nowhere, surrounded by people yelling in Arabic. We were terrified. We didn't know what to do. We got out of the car and we were like, we have to go to the restroom. There's not a quick stop. There's nothing like that. And so they said, well, come and follow us down this little hallway, this dark hallway between 2 buildings. So I'm terrified. What they were doing is taking us to this family's apartment. And the family opened up their apartment to us to let us use the restroom, and then brought us out strawberry juice, guava juice, mango juice, all these things for us to drink. And they had to have a picture with the Americans while they were there. And so this is in the little hallway leading up to their apartment. And this little unnamed town out in the middle of Egypt. And they were the sweetest people. They were absolutely the sweetest people. One of my favorite moments from the trip, the coffee shop about broke my bank account. I spent over $300 American dollars on coffee and tea in this coffee shop, and that lasted me a good 6 months. When I got back, I wish I had more of it, but there was an interesting thing we ran into where you couldn't convert your money back to dollars when leaving. So mom went clothes shopping. I went shopping for coffee, and we blew through the last of the cash that we had. And so the last thing that we just wanted to talk about, mom had touched on the food. Everywhere you went, this was dinner, this was lunch, this was breakfast. And it didn't matter where we were. This is what it was like. Sausages, pita bread, different types of salads, hummus, different types of meat. Never quite sure what some of the meats were, but yeah, this is, and then just a few more pictures of even like one of our breakfasts and one of our lunches that we had. And without a doubt, it was the trip of a lifetime. And that's what we have to present today.
Does anyone have any questions? Yes, yes. Not very big.
Not very big.
Probably 10 by 20, maybe 10 by 18, 10 by 20. And there's nothing in them. Nothing, there's nothing left in the pyramids. Everything has been moved out or stolen.
And there are no hieroglyphs at all in any of the three of the Great Pyramids,
Yeah.
which is really bizarre because they're everywhere else in Cairo, but not in the
In
three
the pyramids.
Yeah.
Somebody else. Yes, Giselle, yeah.
Did you book customs with a lot of very nice purchasing?
Well, no, most of my stuff was alabaster. I bought vases. I bought alabaster vases and some drink cups and things like that. And they shipped that to us. And so I got I'd been home about a week and I got a call from, I guess it was FedEx. I'm not sure who. Anyway, and they delivered a carton. It was the size of like a trunk and had two big locks on it. And I had to dig and find the keys to it. But anyway, and everything that I had bought had been stamped that it had gone through customs and had been opened and rewrapped. And I thought if they do that just for one person coming from Egypt back to the United States, just think what else they have to go through. But most of my stuff was shipped. Anybody else? Yes, ma'am.
They closed down the shops
No, they don't. It's because tourism is their biggest industry, but no one. Like I said earlier that the two main things we could tell it was Ramadan was that they didn't eat or drink till after dusk, and there wasn't a belly dancer at the dinner cruise. They told us that. They said no belly dancer. I said that's okay. Well, we'll make it.
There were a few Egyptian staple foods that I had read about before we left that I really wanted to try, but because of Ramadan, you really couldn't find the foods. Some things were not as readily available,
Right.
Because of the time of month we were there, so the time of year that we were there. So.
Yes, sir.
Okay, English speaking, there are a lot of English available.
All of our guides were well versed in English. Our drivers were not. And so they could speak very little. They could understand some, but they did not speak it well. So the tour guide was very fluent in both Arabic and English.
And Arabic is such a beautiful language.
Okay, so you needed a translator pretty common.
Well, as long as we were with our tour guide, yes, he was the one that would take.
Safety, being out without.
We really didn't go anywhere where he was not pretty close to us. On the Felucca ride, we just insisted that he go with us. There was nobody else on that particular boat except the two of us. And he dropped us off and said, I'll be waiting here when you get done. And we just said, no, come on and go with us. And so he did. But that was normally what they did. They would drop us off at a restaurant. They would be seated off somewhere where they could still see us and things like that. So it was the Sun Pyramid Tour Company out of Cairo. And if they want more information, I can email, like even the lady's name that did our itinerary or whatever. Yeah.
And this company was so good. We did have some changes to our itinerary that we decided on mid-trip. And we could email, text, call at 2:00 in the morning, and they would respond within the hour.
But most of the time they answered the phone or
They answered
texted
the
right
phone.
back. And we were
Yeah,
on the
and
train.
so
Yeah.
the service was unbeatable. It was amazing.
Yeah. And I had talked to 3 different guide companies and decided on them because they were the most flexible. Their price was about middle of the road of the 3 that I looked at, but they were so accessible, so easy to get hold of, and made lots of recommendations for us. Say, don't you want to do this the same day? And we go, if you think we can do that, we'll do it. So they were really, really great to work with.
Something else we didn't mention earlier also is that a lot of times you go in a place like this and you're part of a 20, 30 member tour group.
Yeah.
It wasn't. It was Mom and I, just the 2 of us. We had private drivers, we had private guides, we had private cars. We weren't, they would show up at the front door of the hotel at 6:30 in the morning and pick us up, and that's the way it stayed all day. We didn't have to worry about other people in a tour group. We didn't have to worry about maneuvering people through the world's largest museum. It was just the 2 of us and our guide. And it was.
We really thought, I mean, we anticipated we'd be in a group, maybe a small group. And so we questioned Moab that first night and said, are we meeting a group tomorrow? And he said, no. He said, you won't have me back for like 2 days, but then you'll have so-and-so and so-and-so and the drivers. So it was just the 2 of us the whole time. It was really great. It was really great.
Yes.
I read that you could only take $300 American and get it changed, but only $300 into their country.
We were never confronted with that at all. I took 300 to exchange, and then we were able to get the Egyptian pounds out of the ATM from our accounts here in the United States, here in Tulsa. So no, I had never heard that about the 300, but no one ever said that to us.
And to give you an idea of how cheap it is to travel to Egypt, I took $1,200 cash in my wallet, and we were there 8 days, and I flew back to the US with $400 in my wallet.
Yeah.
And that was buying everything I wanted. That was buying all of the meals that weren't included in our trip. And it's amazing. It was for what we got to do and spend 8 days seeing this.
And I had set a budget for the whole trip, and we came in under the budget, which is amazing. When I got home and we added everything up, we were under what I had planned to spend. And this was after buying everything that we had planned. But anyway, you had a question, I think.
Was your tour guide with you on the train?
No.
We were left by ourselves on the train.
They saw us in. He came in, didn't he, with his luggage? He helped us get our luggage on the train. And
But talking about how good our tour company was, we knew by 2:00 in the morning that we'd made a mistake.
Yeah.
And Mom called the tour company at 2:00 in the morning and said, we need airfare from Aswan back to Cairo because we're not doing this. And an hour later, in the middle of the night, the tour company had already purchased the airfare to fly us back. So it was really
They did not charge us for the train ride. Because I said, I'll pay for the flight. I don't care. At this point in time, I'll pay for the flight. And they said, well, we're not going to charge you for the train. So it all worked out and gave us an extra day, really, because it was just an hour and a half flight from Aswan back to Cairo. Yeah, it was just amazing. We could have stories. There's just so many stories. And here we are a year later, and we're still, we think about it every day. And when we came home, I'd text him and say, I have the Egypt blues today. I'm ready to go back because it was just such a wonderful trip. And I've traveled a lot in Europe and I've had some really, really good trips. And but I'll measure every trip now against Egypt, and that's not good. That's not good. I mean, it'll be great. It'll be great. But if you ever get a chance to go, it's just amazing. And one thing about the Muslim religion, they talked all the time about the pharaohs and building all these things. And it hit, I mean, we're Christian. And so it hit me one day that they're talking about the Old Testament time, which for us is the Old Testament. And so we were talking about how the pyramids were built. And he said they have records that show they were not slaves, that they were paid employees. And I said, yeah, but I bet there are a bunch of Hebrews out there, a bunch of Israelites out there taken into bondage like they got. That happened so many times to them in our records of the Old Testament. And so once we realized we were kind of talking about the same time frame, and he was talking about it from the Pharaoh side, and we were thinking about it from the Hebrew side. So it was real interesting. And he understood that. He understood that too. Because the Bible, they do hold the Bible in high regard, the Old Testament, not the New Testament, but the Old Testament, because that's the beginning of their religion too, was in the Old Testament. So overall, it got an 11 out of 10, I think.
It did. It did.
Are there any other questions then? Oh, okay.
Everything I can do with my debit card, everything, even an ice cream cone.
Yeah.
It sounds like this is not a place to take it. It's more of a unique cash for everything.
You really do need cash. I did use my credit card some. I ran out of cash before we went back to the ATM, before we had that flying trip to the ATM. And I did use my credit card some because credit cards are more protected than a debit card. Yeah, use your credit. Yes, I could use. Yes, there's plenty for that because I tried to keep my cash just for incidental things, not knowing how much. One of our tour guides talked about his wife some, and she had just finished an accounting degree. This will give you an idea about just how a poor of a country, they really are a poor country. And his wife had finished an accounting degree and she got a real good job in a bank. And she was making, I think he said 300 Egyptian, was it 300 or 50? Anyway, what it worked out, it was $300 a month. I can't remember the exact number of Egyptian pounds.
And that was a good job.
And they were thrilled to death that she got a job making $300 a month. She was professional. They had a little girl. They were putting her in an international school. They were able to pay for that. And of course, he made a lot of money off us that week because we waited till the end of the week and we met with all of our tour guides and drivers and we tipped them. So he made probably $200 just from us just that week. And he had other tours too. He did a lot of group tours.
I will tell you the only time I used my card on the whole trip, I learned my lesson the hard way from being a rookie traveling overseas for the first time. After we left Egypt, we flew from Cairo to Istanbul to Dallas, both ways. That's the way we went. And when we got back to Istanbul on our way back to the States, all I wanted was a hamburger. I just wanted a hamburger. And believe it or not, I found a Burger King in Istanbul in the airport. And I ordered their base hamburger, fries, soft drink. And I went to sit down in the food court and Mom goes, because we'd been used to everything being so cheap. And Mom goes, you do know we're in euros now. We're no longer in Egyptian pounds. And I was like, oh no. So I logged into my bank account and I had just paid $30.70 for a value meal in the Istanbul airport. So that was, learned my lesson. So
one other thing that we noticed at a lot of the monuments, especially the Ramses, the huge one that was laying down, they had signs with an explanation about how old it was, where it came from, everything. Almost all of these monuments listed donors, and USAID was number one on all of them. And this was March of last year, where everything had been where the current administration had cut off all that aid. And we saw it everywhere in Egypt. And so that really, we felt like, I hope they can get support somewhere else, or maybe that will work out eventually. But that whole program, I think, has been just dismantled. And so, but we did see it. We saw that, the aid. The museum was funded by Japan, and Egypt has been able, it was like a $3 billion facility, and they loaned it, and Egypt was able to pay that loan back before they even opened the museum. So anyway, anything else? The women cover, even professional women sometimes will wear a suit, a burqa, and they'll cover. But his wife wore a suit like to the bank, but she covered her face. And so the family that we met, the mother and the oldest daughter covered, and they were beautiful. They're beautiful people. They're olive skinned and dark eyed and lots of curly black hair, and they're kind and they're generous. We didn't meet anybody. Yeah, we didn't meet anybody that was the least bit contrary, and they were patient with us when we were asking lots of questions and things like that. So no, I took a scarf. I did take a scarf, and I had it with me in my purse every time except on that road to Aswan. And when we stopped at this man's house, his wife came out and she was covered, and she pointed to me and she did this, and I said, I don't have my scarf with me. And she went back out. I thought she was going to bring me one, but she didn't. And then when we took a picture, she would not have her picture made. She wouldn't have her picture made. But we had been told to go into any of the mosques that I needed to be covered. And that was not, it was never an issue. Nobody ever said you need to do this. And there were lots of tourists, and none of them were covered. They do ask that you dress modestly, like nothing above the knee, no shorts above the knee, nothing. You have to have sleeves on. They don't like anything sleeveless for the women. And we still saw, I mean, you could tell who were tourists and who weren't, but we tried everything that we took. We made sure that we were clothed modestly the way that they, wanted us to. So anything else?
Thank you so much.
Oh, you're
Thank
welcome.
you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.